Good evening, everyone. I'm not quite sure when you'll be watching this. It might be on a Sunday morning, it might be on a Thursday night, but I'm recording this on a Saturday evening. So, good evening to everybody. Times have definitely changed since the last time that I've seen y'all. There's been a lot that's gone on in our community, in the world. Um, Tornadoes, specifically in our community, and then worldwide, we have this virus that's going around, and it seems every day that things are changing so fast, and it seems like we can't keep up. But we serve a God that, believe it or not, has planned this. It's in His plans, and it's in His hands. That's what I wanted to talk about this evening, and I'll get to that in a minute. But I'm very thankful for this opportunity to connect with y'all through this manner. I know it really stinks that we can't meet face to face. You know what I'd give just to go give somebody a hug, or shake somebody's hand without it being awkward and having to give them elbows or something. I just want to shake somebody's hand. But we know that those are great ways to spread sickness, and so we're trying to refrain from doing that. But I keep telling people that what a time do we live in order for this to happen? I mean, imagine if it was 30 years ago when this happened. We wouldn't have all these means of devices. We have phones and computers and iPads, and you may have 3 different devices in your pocket that you could interact with me. You could see my face, but we wouldn't have to be close to each other. We wouldn't have to get sick. So very thankful for the times we live in that allow us to do this. This is the first time I've ever really done a video session of a devotional or preaching or whatever this winds up being. So I thank y'all for bearing with me. But I do have some thoughts. Carver asked me just for about 15 or 20 minutes. We'll see if I can stick to that. Some thoughts, devotional thoughts that I wanted to share with y'all. And one of the biggest things that I've been missing by not being able to go to church, maybe you can't hear that too bad, it's the air conditioner. I'm in a basement, and so the air kicked on. Maybe it's not too loud. But one of the biggest things that I'm missing from church is the singing. Believe it or not, I don't know if you ever sat behind me and listened to me sing, but I do enjoy singing. It's one of the aspects of worship that I love, and it's you can listen to it on TV and maybe sing with the couple people that's in your living room with you, but it's just not the same as singing with the brethren. The old songs, the new songs, I miss it. But one of the songs that I keep reflecting on in times such as this is I know who holds tomorrow. And one of the lines that I think about that's just been going through my head is, many things about tomorrow I don't seem to understand, but I know who holds tomorrow, and I know who holds my hand. And that is so true today in the world that we live in. Things are changing so rapidly. Maybe your job situation is there today and gone tomorrow. Maybe you're through this virus mess. You don't have that job anymore, and that was something that you're counting on. And I'm sure it's very difficult, and it's something that nobody understands why or even what's going on. But the important thing is that God holds tomorrow, and not only that, it's easy to sit back and think that, okay, God knows what's going on tomorrow. Well, what's that mean for me today? God holds our hand. He holds us through that, and He brings us through the things that He does that. He talks about in passages that things have to be forged with fire. We know that metals become stronger if you just heat them up and then cool them down. It's called a forging process. It makes that metal stronger. And sometimes God does the same thing with us. He brings us to a situation that in the middle of it is very difficult. We don't understand. We don't know what's going on. And it's very extreme. And then at the end of it, we're stronger for that. You either melt in the fire, or you become stronger. And that's what we have to be right now. So I've got some passages for us. First passage that I want to look at is in the book of Ecclesiastes. I know it may not be one that's frequented, but it's right after Proverbs. That helps you reference there. But we're going to be in Ecclesiastes chapter 3. This is a passage that I was familiar with bits and pieces of, but I don't know the last time I'd ever really read it all the way through. But it's important to understand that this is not exactly a face value passage, as I want to call it. It's not a cornbread English passage. If you go back to the language it was written in, just understand that it was poetry. They call it sarcastic poetry. So take this with a grain of salt. Just wait till we read to the end of it, and then put all the verses together, and it'll make a little bit more sense. Kind of summarize those verses. We'll start in Ecclesiastes chapter 3 and verse 1. To everything there is a season, a time for every purpose under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to pluck what is planted, a time to kill and a time to heal, a time to break down and a time to build up, time to weep, time to laugh, time to mourn, time to dance, time to cast away stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing. Isn't that kind of strange? I don't know if that was directed at today's times, but I'm going to act like it is, and I'm going to exchange embrace with hug. It says a time to hug and a time to refrain from hugging. I'd say we're living in the time to refrain from hugging, and looky there, God says it's okay. A time to gain and a time to lose, a time to keep, a time to throw away, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silence and a time to speak, a time to love and a time to hate, a time of war and a time of peace. English, when I was in high school and middle school and grade school, was not my strong point, but I do remember one thing from English. They call it comparing and contrasting. If you got two things and you look at both sides of it, that's comparing and contrasting. You tell them what's similar about it, you tell them what's different. I think that's what's going on here. But I want us to look at this passage as a whole and understand that in each one of these situations, a time for one and a time for two, a time for three and a time for four. And each one of these is pointing out that God is in control. There's a situation that's going on that we don't know anything about. We don't understand it. And it doesn't make sense to us. A time of war, a time of peace, things that don't make sense to us. A time to break down, a time to mourn, a time to cast stones, a time to lose, a time to throw away, a time to keep silent, a time to hate, a time of war. A lot of these we don't understand. But for each one of those ebbs, there's a flow. There's an opposite season, a time to plant and a time to harvest. There's two sides to that story, and sometimes we only see the one because that's what's hard for us. But through all this, through this language, we understand that in each one of these situations, God is in control, and that is just as true then as it is now. I could just put that's verse 8. Say verse 8.5, a time for this virus and a time to be healed. But in all that, I want us to understand that God is in control no matter what is going on in our day to day. We understand the world as a whole is real uncertain, and maybe your life right now seems real uncertain just through circumstances. You're scared to go to the store and get what you need. Maybe I talked earlier about maybe your job has fallen through, at least temporarily, hopefully temporarily. But just believe that God is in control. Even if it's hard, maybe look at it like God is forging you and going to make you stronger when we come out of this on the other end. Got a couple more verses that I'd like to look at. These are verses that I sometimes just reflect on them because I find it hard to draw exactly what kind of conclusions. I look at a passage and it just goes through your head and you say, well, what am I supposed to gather from that? I know it's saying something, I just can't figure it out. Well, let's look at them. James chapter 4, starting in verse 13. Come now, you who say, today or tomorrow we will go to such a city and spend a year there, buy and sell and make a profit, whereas you do not know what will happen tomorrow. For what is your life? Is it even a vapor that appears for a little time and then vanishes away? Instead, you ought to say, if the Lord wills, we shall live, and do this or that. But now you boast in your arrogance. All such boasting is evil. Therefore to him who knows to do good and does not do it, to him it is sin. This passage is, the root of this passage is getting at the things that consume your life. You know, you've got those friends, and they, I don't know. I can't speak for everybody because I don't really know what all age groups I'm speaking to, but I'm sure you can relate. But I see people my age. They've got these. I graduated high school with them. They had these dreams. Maybe they went to school, or maybe they learned a trade or a profession and developed that because they said, I want to do this. I want to buy a race car, and I want to have my own four-wheeler dirt bike track in my yard, or whatever the case was. And then they just chase that dream. And that's great. Maybe, they got a boat or whatever it is. And that's great that they followed that dream, but it's obvious that all of their thoughts are centered around things of this world. And this passage, if I understand it, the way that I read it, it says, you got to have the world to live in it. You got to have the world. You got to have jobs that you can provide for yourself and your family. But it's not all about the world. Please understand that there's things after this world, preparations that we have to make in this world, so that on down the road, when we're not in this world, we're in a place that's with God. Because we, as Christians, it's our job to serve Him on this earth, so that we can worship Him every day when we're off this earth. I want to read some of these again. Actually, no, I'm not. But I want us to take from this passage that it's, don't just focus on what's going on in the world right now. We got to focus on what's after this world. And on that note, I want us to kind of step back from this passage a little bit. But it's important for us to remain positive in times like this. I know things could be ugly for us financially, or just an ugly situation. You could be sad because you haven't, seen friends or family. And I wish I could. What I'd give to go to my granny's house and eat breakfast with her. It kills me because I have to visit with her, from 10 feet away, just kind of holler out the door at each other. And I'm very grateful for the interactions that I'm able to have with her. But, what I'd give just to sit down and eat breakfast with her or my family or friends that I haven't seen since this started. But we got to understand that it's what's best for us to stay away from each other at a time like this. And so it hurts us a little, but we got to remain positive. Have you seen the sunsets lately? And it was strange that I noticed, because my day job revolves dirt, and my job becomes increasingly hard when it's muddy. And so for the entire months of January until, the beginning of March, it basically didn't stop raining. My job is pretty hard when I'm pushing mud and not dirt. It's hard to get anything done. And about the time that the virus stuff started, it was actually the day after the tornado. Oddly enough, it dried out. And it was the most beautiful sunsets that you've ever seen. You could see orange sky on the whole horizon. And I thought, in the midst of all this craziness, in the midst of all this chaos that we live in, there's beauty, and that's God speaking to us. It talks about we communicate with God, and I believe that we do through prayer, but it's a little different communication because you never hear Him speak back to you. But I really believe that you can see Him speak through His beauty, through the springtime. The dogwoods are blooming right now. And even today, it stormed most of the day, but then there was about an hour where it was just pretty outside. So we got to take the little things that we've got, and we got to be grateful for them, and not just focus on the bad things. That's important for your mental health. I'm not a doctor or anything, but you got to stay happy. That's just it. The last passage that I want to look at is in Matthew chapter 6. Forgot to mark it in my Bible. You know, I've a little bit through the recent events with the virus and the tornadoes, but kind of when I graduated school there about 3 or 4 months ago, I really I learned some lessons in control. I don't know how much you know me, but just ask Lexi. I don't know if I'd call me a control freak in every aspect, but there's definitely some times that I'm a control freak. I like to be in control. I like to know what's going on. I like to plan out my moves or plan out anything so that everything goes as planned, just so things go smooth. But oftentimes it comes off as I just want to be in control of this, and I can hurt people's feelings because I made a decision or whatever the case was. But I've learned that God is in control. There are things that I can plan out. I can say, oh, I'm going to go to school, I'm going to get a job, and then I'm going to live the rest of my life happily ever after, and then I'm going to retire, and I'm going to die. That's that's I'm not even past step one of that, and the plan's already shot, um, because I'm not the one that's in control. It's God that's in control. God is going to put you where He wants you, um, and I've just had to learn that God is in control. Maybe you've had things in your life that you thought, oh, it's going to go just like this, and then it goes the exact opposite, and you might get frustrated, but understand that it's God that's in control. Matthew chapter 6, starting in verse 25. Therefore I say to you, do not worry about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap nor gather into barns, yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Which of you, by worrying, can add one cubit of stature to his can add 1 cubit to his stature? There in verse 26, I kind of wanted to be funny, so I added just a little bit to it, but it's lighthearted, so don't take this seriously. Look at the birds of the air, for they neither sow nor reap, nor do they gather up hordes of toilet paper from Walmart, yet the Heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not of more value than they? Maybe you found that a little bit funny, but sure enough, the birds don't go into Walmart and hoard the toilet paper because of the coronavirus. But I kid. And all this in this passage, I want us to just understand that God is in control. One thing that I often think about is in today's world, we kind of know, we like to know something. We have a 2-year contract for a job. We know that we're going to be working here for 2 years. When I was in school at the beginning of the semester, I knew that for the next 4 or 5 months, I'd be going to class and I'd be doing this and I'd be working at these times. And I guess I had peace in that. And in the moment, I'd complain about having to go to class, but looking back, it was a little bit nice knowing that I had something to do for the next 4 months. And nowadays, things are a little differently. But I reflect back to during the Bible times. I can't remember the passage off the top of my head, but it talks about a guy going to look for laborers, and he goes out he goes out early, he goes out in the middle of the day, and he goes out in the 11th hour, at the end of the day. And the moral of the story was that everybody's labor was worth the same, but those people would go out on the side of the road first thing in the morning, and somebody would come by and say, hey, I need some workers this morning, hop on the back of the truck or hop on my ox cart or follow me. And that's how it was back then. You got up and you didn't know if you had a job until you got called to go to work off the side of the road. And so I think about God took care of those people, and He's going to take care of me and you. So don't worry about this. He takes care of the birds. He takes care of the little rabbits that are being born. He takes care of the lilies in the field. He takes care of the dogwoods that are blooming. I could go on and on, but looks like my time's about up. I thank you for tuning in to what I had to say, and maybe just maybe it has an effect on somebody. But it's important for us to stay positive. I hope to see you all so soon. I just can't wait to give you all a hug, shake your hand, and just see you face to face, talk with you. It's a strange world we live in, but we make the best of it, and God looks out for us. Thank you all. Take care.